Mexico, 1536, 4 men. 600 sailed from Spain for Florida. These 4 walked into Mexico City on foot from Texas with a crowd behind them. No weapon, no clothes, 2,000 miles of other people's country. How? A man with a headache. That is how it started. Not a corpse, a headache. Charles V gets his report. Coronado gets his 7 cities of gold. One of the 4 gets sent back in.
History Parody Radio, the American station. In night camp in the Texas brush, autumn 1534. Some of the people in it walked over to Alonso del Castillo. Their heads hurt.
Nobody chose him. They had heard about the 4 before the 4 arrived. His father had been a physician, which is the worst qualification in that camp. He knows how little he knows.
He made the sign of the cross over them. He prayed, and they said the pain had gone. The cured men came back with prickly pears and a piece of venison and gave them that. And that same night, everybody who was sick in that country came.
I am going to tell you what happened and not what it was. I was not given the second one.
The next camp knew before they arrived, and the one after that.
They stopped being travelers. They became an event that was scheduled.
And somewhere behind them, in the Texas country they had walked out of, he had seen the cattle 3 times, and he had eaten of them. Small horns like the cows of Morocco, hair long and flocky like a merino's, some tawny, some black.
He wrote the description down. He did not claim to have found them.
We never once knocked on a door in that country. Every door we came to was already open, and there was already a crowd standing in it.
And here is the strangest true thing in the whole account. Each country that received them was stripped bare on arrival by the country escorting them in. And the people being robbed were consoled with a promise that further on, when their own turn came to escort, they would be repaid tenfold out of the next country.
In 6 years, I had learned what a shell was worth in 3 countries. I could not have told you what we were worth. We were what everybody was paying with.
Estevanico went ahead, first into every new country, first to speak, first to be looked at. And Cabeza de Vaca explains the arrangement himself in one sentence, without appearing to notice what he is admitting.
To preserve our authority, we seldom talked with them. The black man was in constant conversation. He informed himself about the ways we wished to take, of the towns there were, and the matters we desired to know.
3 men protecting a rank that had not existed for 7 years by refusing to speak to anybody. And 1 man who was not allowed a rank asking directions.
I go first because I can ask. By the time you 3 arrive, they know why you are here and what you will not take from them. And I go first because if the country in front of us is angry, it should be angry at 1 man and not at 4. That is the whole reason. It is not courage, it is arithmetic.
This program is not going to point out what is wrong with that arrangement. You have been holding it since the last episode.
Then the people he calls the Sosolas sent for them, and they asked for Castillo by name, because Castillo was a reputation that traveled.
And Castillo would not go.
He was timid. He said so. He believed that his own sins would make the cure fail. He had spent the whole road frightened of exactly this request. So Cabeza de Vaca went instead, and took Dorantes and Estevanico with him. He found the man with his eyes turned up, no pulse in him, and every sign of death about him. The house had already been pulled down over him, which is what that country did for the dead. He prayed. He made the sign of the cross. He was told that night that the man was sitting up, walking, talking, eating. And throughout that land, he writes, the people talked of nothing else. Then the 4 of them stayed exactly where they were for 8 months. A long way further on, and a long time later, comes the one thing in this episode that is unambiguously real, physical, and his. A man had an arrowhead in his right shoulder, the point lodged above the heart, and had carried it there a long time. Cabeza de Vaca opened his breast with a knife. The point lay crosswise and was hard to get out. He worked it loose, turned it, and drew it through. Then he made 2 stitches with the bone of a deer and stopped the bleeding with a scraping from a hide. He cut the stitches out the next day.
The man got up, and the man got better.
The whole town came to look at the point. Then it was sent inland, country to country, so that other people could look at it.
That one I did with my hands. I know exactly what I did, and I could do it again. It is the only cure I ever performed that I can explain. It is also the one that made us untouchable in that country, and I have never held those 2 facts in one hand.
They turned from west to southwest, and the ground turned with them. Brush to river valleys to mountains, permanent houses, cotton cloth, worked turquoise, maize in store.
And they were given cloth and offered something to wear for the first time in 7 years.
I had stopped being surprised by that country, which is not the same as understanding it. I want that on the record.
And then Castillo saw a necklace on a man with 2 things sewn to it that did not belong in that country. A buckle from a sword belt and a horseshoe nail. He asked where they had come from. He was told men with beards had come to that river from the sky with horses and lances and swords, and had run 2 men through.
And the 4 of them gave thanks to God.
I had asked 10 nations how far it was to the Christians, and none of them had a word for it. Then a man showed me a nail, and we thanked God.
Hold on to how happy they are here. They do not know what that nail means yet. You do.
This is the river country of Sinaloa. It grows tomatoes and maize for export now on the same bottomland. The last stretch, and nobody has to explain it. Towns standing empty, doors open, nothing taken. Towns burned, not by the people who had lived in them, and the people who came down to meet them were thin and sick and hiding. Estevanico did the asking, as he had done it for 2,000 miles. Then he came back and told the other 3.
Christians have been coming through here for a long time, on horses, with lances. They take people away in chains, and the people do not come back.
He is the man who had to carry that sentence back to them.
Half the people of that country were gone. The rest had stopped planting, because a planted field tells a raider where you sleep.
4 men were walking toward their own people at last, through the evidence.
I did not say anything for 2 days. There was nothing in me to say that would not have been a lie in front of the people saying it.
Durantes and Castillo would not go. They were exhausted, and they said so, and they stayed where they were. So 2 men went with 11 of the people who had walked with them.
1 Spaniard, 1 man his own countryman called property, and 11 people who had chosen to come.
Naked, burned black, hair past the shoulders, and 4 Spanish horsemen on a slaving patrol stopped and stared and did not speak.
Durantes and Castillo came in 5 days later. The man who found Spain again was walking with the man Spain had sold. You have been carrying this scene since the first minute of episode 1. Now you know what is standing in front of them.
Take me to your chief.
That is all the record gives. 6 words from a man who had 8 years of them saved up.
The captain was Diego de Alcaraz. 20 horsemen working the river for people to sell. He wanted them. Cabeza de Vaca refused.
What follows is not a fight. It is 2 Spaniards arguing about who the king's law belongs to. It is the beach in Florida again, with the rolls turned around, and he loses it the same way. The other man has rank and horses and soldiers. He has a gourd.
So Alcaraz set his own interpreter to the crowd to tell them that the 4 men were persons of mean condition and small force, and that Alcaraz and his horsemen were the lords of that land, who must be obeyed and served. And they would not believe it. And they said, why? They said, we had come from where the sun rises, and these men from where it sets, that we heal the sick, and these kill the well, that we came naked and barefoot, and these came clothed on horses with lances, that we took nothing and gave away everything that was given to us, and that these came only to rob whomever they found, and gave nothing to anybody. Alcaraz could not take them while the 4 were standing there. So he did not fight, and he did not threaten, and he did not ask anybody to sign anything.
He had them removed.
He sent them onward under an officer of his own with an escort. And the escort took them off the road into forest with no water in it, and kept them there for 2 days. 7 people died of thirst on that march.
This is the paperwork of this empire. It simply did not need paper that day.
And behind them, in the country they had been walked away from, the raiding went ahead.
I did not sign anything at that river. I have thought about that for years. It has never once been a comfort. He did not need my hand. He only needed me somewhere else.
And before he left that river, he had already done the thing he had been doing since April 1528.
I asked Alcaraz's own men for a certificate, the year, the month, and the day that I arrived, and the manner of my coming.
In episode 1, he asked a notary for a certificate, and was told he had no standing to require one. Then he watched the same pen write the governor's version instead.
This time they gave it to him, freely and for himself. Then the town and the man in charge of it, Melchior Diaz, the first Spanish officer in this series who behaves well. He sent 2 captives from that country into the hills, carrying a gourd to bring the people down.
A gourd, because a gourd was the only authority the 4 of them had left, and in that country it worked.
And Melchior Diaz made peace with the chiefs of the mountains, and it was done properly, before the notary, in the presence of many witnesses, of which I so attest.
The one page in this whole story where the paperwork was telling the truth. And it changed nothing at all.
600 men, 8 years. And the first paper anybody let me have was a receipt saying that I had arrived.
July 1536, Mexico City. 8 years and 3 months after the landing in Florida. They were given clothes and could not stand to wear them. They were given beds and slept on the floor.
And they were asked to tell it at dinner as entertainment.
600 sailed. 4 arrived.
And then he did the only thing he had ever been good at. He asked for paper.
A man who had not held a pen in 8 years, sitting down to write names.
Alvar Nunez Cabeza de Vaca wrote his account and gave it to the king. He was later made governor of the Rio de la Plata, where he tried to restrain the colonists under him. His own royal officers arrested him in April 1544 and shipped him home in chains. He was convicted on 32 charges and banished from the Indies for life.
The African service was lifted in 1552. The banishment never was. He was never pardoned and never cleared, and no document records him after 1559.
Andres Dorantes and Alonso del Castillo stayed in Mexico. The viceroy arranged marriages for both of them to wealthy widows, and both came into grants of indigenous labor through their wives. Castillo spent years petitioning the crown. His own stepson sued him over a share of a grant, and he wrote in his own hand that he was dying of hunger. Estevanico was not freed. He passed to the Viceroy, Mendoza, purchased or handed over without payment. The sources disagree. In 1539, he was sent north again, guiding an expedition that was hunting cities of gold. He walked ahead, as he always had, and he set a token in front of him. A gourd hung with strings of rattles, and 2 plumes, one white and one red. At Hawicoo, the people there killed him. Coronado confirmed it on that ground the following year, and they had kept the things he wore. They killed nobody else in his party.
In that country, a red feather has been read as a declaration of war. That is one reading, and it is offered as one. And here is the other, given last because it closes this program's own loop.
A Zuni anthropologist, Edmund Ladd, reads it a third way, not for being black, not for what he asked for, because he was leading in men more powerful than himself. On that reading, news of Spanish slave-taking had reached that pueblo by trade before he did.
A coast that sat down and wept over 80 starving strangers, and a town that had already heard what was coming.
He set a gourd ahead. A gourd had opened every door for 2,000 miles. This was not that gourd. The king's fifth was never collected. There were only 4. Everything in these 5 episodes comes from the account Alvar Nunez Cabeza de Vaca wrote to justify himself to a king. Where the second account, the joint report, disagrees with him, our sources file says so.
Sources are pinned in the comments. Thank you for staying with it.